I don't know about you, but it feels like Christmas is very quickly approaching. So here are 20 free patterns that you can knit in time for Christmas. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. I'm going to apologize right away because I am filming this after work, and because we are getting close to the end of November, that means I have no daylight left. By the time I get home, it's already dark, so I am using some artificial light today. I'm in our bedroom, which has some really nice floor lamps that give off some nice bright light, as well as a filming light on top of my phone, which gives another artificial boost of light. However, the side effect of that is that it reflects on my glasses a lot. So I do apologize if that is distracting. I know I can find it distracting sometimes when I'm watching videos. So I do want to give that little disclaimer right away. But I really wanted to film this video and I did not get time to do it on this weekend past. So recording after work is my only option. So I hope you don't mind that, but I think you're really gonna like today's video. I'm doing another pattern roundup, but this one is a really fun one. It is 20 free patterns that you can knit in time for Christmas. Now, if you have been with me for any length of time, you'll know that I'm not much of a gift knitter. In fact, I'm that person who is on Instagram leading up to Christmas, sending out that reminder saying, just because you knit doesn't mean you need to knit something for somebody for Christmas. But I wanted to put this video together because I was feeling inspired. With a couple of friends, I co-host Halifax Stitch Social here in Nova Scotia, and we decided to put together a little bit of a gift guide for knitting and crochet patterns that you could knit or crochet as Christmas gifts. And we each were only doing a couple for the post, and that got me thinking about all the other patterns that I have in my favorites and in my library that are great options for gift knitting. Now, I don't do gift knitting, particularly not for Christmas. I just find that it's a very stressful season. There's way too much going on in order to get anything done in time for Christmas. And I just don't want that added pressure of that big looming deadline in order to get something ready to gift to somebody. So I thought it was a great idea to put together a list of these 20 patterns that are really quick to knit up in time for Christmas, just in case maybe you have a Secret Santa person that you have no idea what to get for them. Maybe you have some family members that you just want to have something quick and easy to put together in time for the holidays. Maybe you don't want to gift knit for anyone at all. Maybe you want to knit some of these things for yourself. I know there's quite a few patterns on this list that I would like to make for myself. With this list, I wanted to have the added element of making these all free patterns because sometimes we gift knit as a way of saving ourselves a little bit of money. I am not in any way decreasing the value of hand knit items. I personally know those are extremely precious and in some cases priceless, but I know for myself sometimes if I've been a little strapped for cash and I have some yarn in my stash, I'll sometimes pick a free pattern and knit up a gift in order to save myself that little bit of cash that I otherwise would have had to spend on a gift. So whatever your reason for gift knitting or knitting for yourself, let's take a look at my list of patterns. The first pattern on my list are the World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits. If you're at all familiar with free knitting patterns, you know that Tin Can Knits has quite a few to choose from, but I have chosen the World's Simplest Mittens because they really are the world's simplest mittens. These are so easy to construct. They are made using worsted weight yarn with a ribbed cuff and then a simple stockinette hand and a gusset thumb. These are super easy to make. They knit up super quick, and they come in a range of sizes. They come from anywhere from a toddler size all the way up to an adult large. As somebody with large hands, thank you to my dad's genetics, I appreciate a large glove because sometimes I need some extra room. So I love that this pattern comes in multiple sizes. I also think because it is just simple rib and then stockinette, these are going to knit up really quickly. But maybe you want to make fingerless gloves, in which case the next pattern is Cozy Hand Warmers by Emily Baudouin, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is a maker behind the store Maker Maker, which is located in Australia, and they have lots of free patterns on Ravelry. I previously made their See My Vest Chunky, which I wear all the time and I really love. And I wanted to highlight their Cozy Hand Warmers pattern because it's just a simple fingerless mitten. It doesn't have any fuss about it. Again, like the world's simplest mittens, short little ribbed cuff, and then a stockinette hand piece, as well as what looks like just an increased out thumb, and then finished again with some ribbing at the top. I like that these are just really short ones that just cover your hand in the very beginning of your wrist. Similar to the world's simplest mittens, these hand warmers come in a range of sizes from child all the way up to large adult. So again, lots of room for if you're making them for someone with large hands or with little itty bitty hands. Now maybe you have someone in your life that you need to make something a little more unique for. This next pattern is Pieces of 8 Mitts by Sybil R. And I first found this pattern on Pinterest, I want to say at least 7 or 8 years ago, because I saw this relatively early in my knitting journey, and I saved this pattern way back when. And fortunately, the pattern is still available and it's still free. This one just might break your brain, but there is a really comprehensive diagram to go with it to create that really impressive figure 8 swirl around the fingerless mitten. If you've checked out any of Sybil's patterns on Ravelry, you'll know that she specializes in unique construction, modular knitting, really unique and interesting concepts when it comes to rethinking knitted classics. Her Pieces of 8 mitts are one of many fingerless mitten patterns that she has that completely turn on your head how to construct them. They're not just a simple in the round, cuff up, do a little thumb, and finish with the hand. They always use really interesting construction. She has a few paid ones that I've put on my list of favorites because they're just so unique and different, and I'm really curious to see how they're made. And one day I will make the Pieces of 8 mittens. This is one that I would recommend using either a self-striping or a gradient yarn, so that really highlights those ridges of garter stitch showing off that figure 8 swirl. The next pattern on my list is what I made for Doyle for Christmas last year. These are the Warm and Cozy Socks by Lyndon Down. And although this pattern is technically for socks, I made them into slipper socks because these are super bulky socks. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want super bulky socks on my feet before I put them in my boots or my sneakers. That's just too thick around my feet. But they're great for slipper socks or house socks or something that you would just wear when you're lounging, when you want to be cozy, keep your feet nice and warm. Maybe when you first get into bed and the bed's a little cold, you want to keep your feet nice and warm before eventually kicking them off before you go to sleep, because I don't know about you, but I cannot sleep in socks. But these are such a fun option for a really quick to knit sock. Now I will caveat this by saying the ones I made for Doyle ended up being too big, but that's what he likes about them. He likes that they're oversized so that he can wear them over regular socks and wear them like slippers. I even bought little suede pads off of Etsy in order to sew onto the bottom to keep them non-slip. So I'll include a link to those in the description box below in case you too want to make a pair of slipper socks and make them non-slip. Something important to note about this pattern though is it is a single-sized sock. So it only has one width all the way around, and that is for a man's 10.5 to size 12 foot. Now my husband wears 9.5, so that might be why they were a little too big for him. But if you want to maybe size down, you could just cut out a couple of stitches or maybe go for a smaller size yarn. This one is for a super bulky, but maybe go down to a bulky or maybe even a worsted, and you might get a smaller size sock that fits a bit better. But keep in mind, try it on as you go so that you get a fit that you're happy with. Moving away from hands and feet, let's take a look at some gifts for your head. The first of which is the Raspberry Headband by my friend Hannah of Herb Garden Knitwear. I was so delighted to find this pattern in my favorites because I know Hannah is one of my favorite pattern designers. She's so creative in the things that she comes up with. And I had no idea that she had a few free patterns. She has 3 headband patterns, and I have chosen to spotlight the Raspberry Headband just because it's a really classic, cozy headband. It's knit all in garter stitch flat with that really nice twist at the front and then seamed at the back. So this is knit with fingering weight yarn, but I'm sure all of us have some fingering weight scraps hanging around in our stash, and this one only uses about 100 to 160 yards of fingering weight yarn. This one only comes in a single size, but it's very simple to adjust it to a different sized head, and Hannah has given instructions in the pattern in order to teach you how to do that. The next pattern on my list is the Cozy Winter Cap by Dreadful Velvet Designs. What a fun designer name. But I wanted to highlight this pattern because I am seeing a resurgence in vintage styled patterns. So the hoods have taken the knitting world by storm. More on those later. But I also love that these really cute 40s and 50s sort of snoods or caps have come back into the knitting fashion as well. I also just love how this one does the job of a headband, but stays in place because you tie it under your neck. I definitely want to make myself one of these because I have plenty of scraps of worsted weight yarn in my stash that could definitely be used for this. And I love that I'm going to get something that will stay on my head. Another bonus of this one is, I don't know about you, but I always feel kind of weird wearing a headband when my hair is down. I typically will wear a hat instead. But sometimes, like my hair now, it's a really awkward length and it kind of like gets kind of tangled in the back when I'm wearing a hat because the hat moves up and down. I feel like this one might fix that problem for me because it's not going to have that really wide brim in the back like a headband, which would just shove your hair up like this. You just have a little I-cord trim, but you still have plenty of width covering your ears, which is really important to me. I don't know about you, but it gets really windy where I live in the wintertime, and that wind chill is what really drives the temperature down. So it's really important to me to have something that covers my ears in order to keep me nice and cozy during those really blistery months. One more thing to point out about the Cozy Winter Cap is that if you have a cordsmith tool, that's perfect for creating the I-cords on that cap in order to keep them really nice and slick and make the process quite a bit faster when doing an I-cord. Now, if you want a pattern to knit for Christmas that's just going to be a fun gift that they can wear no matter what the weather, here's my next pattern. This is the Lace Hair Kerchief by Lucy H. Lee. And if this looks familiar to you, it's because I talked about it in my most recent podcast episode as something that I wanted to cast on with my Stash Spotlight yarn. And it's also made an appearance last year when I knit the Pillars Tank by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted, and I knit a little triangle of this beautiful lace pattern in order to fill in the back of a deep V back. So this is a free pattern that is knit from the point of the bandana up to wherever you decide it's big enough, and then you do a garter tab to create that nice tie. This bandana is so cute. I love that little flower lace stitch. It's really simple to do. It's only a couple of rows that you repeat in order to create that pattern, and it creates a beautiful effect. This pattern can also be turned into a shawl. So if you don't want to knit a bandana, but maybe you want like a cute little neck scarf, or maybe you want a big shawl and you have the time to knit it, you can just keep expanding this pattern until you're happy with the size, and you'll get this really nice triangular shawl. That's what I intend to do with some of the yarn that I showed in my most recent podcast episode, and I think it's going to turn out so good with this particular stitch pattern. Now we're moving on to probably my favorite accessory to knit, and that's hats. I have 4 hat patterns to share with you, starting with a hat pattern that literally just came out last week. This is the Steady Stockinette Hat by Allison Schmidt. This pattern is, as the name suggests, a stockinette hat. And the whole thing is done in stockinette. So you have this really beautiful double folded brim that is stockinette, the whole body is stockinette, and then there's some really beautiful decreases. They remind me of the ones of the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, but it's done on stockinette. It creates this really beautiful spiral heading to the top of the head, and I just find that it looks so crisp and clean. Also, if you take a close look at this pattern, it looks a little like a famous hat by a famous designer, if you get my drift. But this one is a free pattern that just came out last week. Now, I just name dropped it when talking about the last pattern, so you know my next pattern is going to be the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. This has got to be one of my favorite hat patterns. The other 2 patterns coming up are my other favorite hat patterns. But this is one that I have knit twice already, and I'm currently working on my 3rd one. I can't stop knitting this hat. I find it so quick to knit. It's so enjoyable to knit. I keep it as my in the background anti-stress, anti-anxiety knitting, my purse knitting, my waiting knitting, whatever you want to call it. It's just that pattern that I have on the needles ready to go whenever I'm in a situation where I need something really simple to work on. But it's also really quick to knit if you just sit down and do it. So I really wanted to include this pattern on the list. Now, I usually deviate from the pattern and make an extra long brim so that I can double fold it. But my most recent one that I made for my husband is only folded once because it was a bit thicker. I used some DK weight. That's a little disclaimer that I want to put out with this pattern. According to the pattern instructions, you're supposed to use DK weight yarn with 3.25 millimeter needles to get a 32 stitch by 33 row gauge. I don't know about you, but the math is not mathing on that one for me. So I actually do not recommend DK with this. I recommend sport weight or fingering. My first version that I made that I absolutely love is sport weight, and it met gauge perfectly. My fingering weight one is going to be a little gapier, but it's totally fine. I've also gone up a needle size. I find that's just a little small for me, so I go up to a 3.5 millimeter needle. So that's a US 4. And I find that I'm perfectly happy with that gauge. It's a hat. It doesn't have to be perfect anyway. There are a myriad of sizes available for this pattern. It goes from a baby size all the way up to an adult large. And I typically make the adult small, and I've got a really big head. So I find this one is really great. It's because of that 1x1 rib stitch. It's really stretchy. So this one is one that I highly recommend as a quick to knit, but play around with the fabric to make sure that you like what you're making. Don't necessarily go with a thick-ish DK weight yarn on such small needles. It's really gonna hurt your hands, trust me. Now, if you like the look of the classic ribbed hat, but you want something that's gonna go just a little bit quicker, this next pattern is for you. This is 2x2 by Anne Gagnon, and I think I have made this pattern 5 times now. I've made it as gifts for other people. I've made it a couple of times for myself, and I love it. Now, a quick disclaimer about this pattern. This is the pattern that you knit for someone in your life who has a big head, because this is sized for anywhere from a 22-inch head to a 24-inch head. And I personally find the original stitch count in the pattern to be too big, and I have a 22-inch head. So this pattern recommends that you cast on 112 stitches. That's quite a lot for me. But fear not, it's really easy to resize it if you need to make it smaller. All you need to do is change your cast on number by 8 stitches. So it has to be 8 stitches exactly, because when you get to the crown decreases, you decrease 8 stitches each time you do a crown decrease. So if you're off, you're gonna have a really weird number by the time you get to the top, and you need to make sure that you have a multiple of 8 so that those 4 crown points really stand out on the rib fabric, because it's such a beautiful detail. I find that it looks really professional and almost like a store-bought hat. but you have made it yourself. So when I think back to the ones that I've made, I typically go down to 96 stitches for this particular pattern. So I just don't do as many crown decreases because I get to the number that I need for that final closing up of the crown earlier than I would if I started with the 112 stitches that this pattern tells you to start with. So this one requires just a little bit of extra math and thinking, but it's really not that hard once you get into it, and it's clearly addictive because I've made at least 5. The next pattern on my list is my favorite hat pattern. It's one that I use as a palette cleanser when I am really unsure of what I want to work on, and it's one that always looks really pretty for a gift knit. This is Jason's Cashmere Hat by Melissa Thompson. I love this pattern. It's a quick and easy cabled pattern. I don't even use a cable needle for this because they're all the same cable going in the same direction, only using a couple of stitches. I find it's easy enough to do without. If you still need to use a cable needle, not a problem. You can still do that. But it's just a really classic looking cabled hat that looks impressive without having to do a lot of work and read cable patterns or, really focus on the knitting. It's also a really quick pattern to knit up. It uses worsted weight yarn, and I remember one time I knit this for my mom, and I think she just needed a hat really quickly. I think I did this in like 2 days, and I'm not a fast knitter. Also, I gave myself some wrist pain by doing that. So do not recommend knitting it that fast unless you know yourself and you know that you don't have wrist problems or anything when you're knitting that much. But really quick, really easy, really fun. That's something that I love about this pattern. It was always fun to knit this pattern. I mentioned it before, and now we're here. I have some knitted hoods to share with you. I have 2. The first one is the Tromsø hoodie, I hope I pronounced correctly, by Sisu Knitwear. This is one that I found totally by accident when searching online because I really want something that's going to stay nice and cozy around my head and my neck. Last winter, it was particularly cold, and I remember I have at least one picture, which I'll put here, of me with a cowl or a scarf wrapped tightly around my neck as well as my hood all the way down, and I was just trying to keep as much as my face and ears and neck covered as possible. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if this was all one knitted piece, not a couple of things layered on top of each other? Although don't get me wrong, as a knitter, I have no problem layering my knits, especially to keep cozy and warm in the wintertime. But it kind of sparked an idea in my head of eventually knitting myself a hood. I love the look of this one because it's a really compact one. This is more one that I would wear if I'm trying to be active in the wintertime and I don't want to fuss with anything. I just want to make sure that I have coziness around my neck, coziness around my head, and it just looks super cozy. This one is made with super bulky yarn, but it looks like it's a blown style yarn, so you could also get away by maybe holding a worsted and a couple of strands of mohair together in order to keep that fuzziness, keep it nice and cozy. I think Snefnug, Kamaro's Snefnug would probably be a really nice yarn for this. Keep it super cozy, but also keep it nice and light. And this one, it just features some beautiful shaping. I love the twisted rib on the neck, although you could change that to regular rib if you're not into twisted rib. But something that I really like about this is that it doesn't have that really sharp pixie at the hood. It does have a little bit of a point, but it's not an exaggerated one. It does have some shaping on the really tip of the hood to keep it from really pointing up. That's a vintage look, having that really sharp point to a hood. It's not for me, it's not my particular style. I find you have to be really stylish to pull that off. I feel like I just look ridiculous with it, but you do you. That's just not what I chose for this particular pattern roundup. Now, if you're looking for a hood that's going to be more about the neck portion and really showcase some nice yarn, this next pattern is for you. This is the Hood Scarf by Victoria Fedorova. I hope I pronounced correctly. And this one is one of those scarves that has a hood in the middle. So you stick it on top of your head and you wrap the tails of the scarf around your neck. And it just looks so simple, so cozy. And because it's all done in garter stitch, I feel like it's the perfect pattern to highlight some really beautiful yarns. So this one uses worsted weight yarn. I'm sure I have some worsted in my stash that I could use for this, and I might get working on that relatively soon because I really want this for the winter and it's already cold out. Now this pattern is only one size, but I have taken a look at some of the tester photos and it looks like it fits a variety of head shapes and sizes. So I'm feeling confident that this will work for my large head. Now let's move on to a couple neck accessories. And I have to share this one because it's a free pattern, because it's super easy, and because I think more people should know about this pattern. This is The Simple Thing by Melina Brell. Looks a tad familiar, doesn't it? Well, this is a free version, and it's really quick to knit. It's a simple garter stitch scarf with a lovely I-cord around the edges to keep that nice and crisp, and you could do it in whatever size you want. This pattern is really simple to make. There are some gentle increases, which there are some infographics to illustrate how to do that on the pattern page. And then you just increase until you're happy with the width, happy with the length, and then you start to decrease again. So it's really that simple, hence why it's called The Simple Thing. But this is the perfect pattern to showcase some beautiful yarn in your stash. It is made with a DK weight yarn, but you could easily hold fingering weight double. And this is something that I would use to show off some really special yarn that I have. So sometimes you get that one special skein of fingering that you see at a wool show or that you saw from one of your favorite dyers online. You just couldn't leave it there and you don't really know what to do with it, but you know you want to highlight it. This is a great pattern for that. And it would also make a really special gift if you wanted to give that to somebody else. If you want something a little more interesting than the Simple Thing scarf, this next pattern is for you. This is the Pressed Flowers Kerchief by Amy Christoffers. And this one only came out, I think, last year. Now, if you're not familiar with the Pressed Flowers stitch, let me enlighten you. Amy Christoffers has a slew of patterns that use this particular mosaic stitch pattern, and it's such a beautiful one to use, especially if you have some color changing yarn. Now, the Pressed Flowers Kerchief is the only one in the collection that is a free pattern because this one was done as a collaboration with Hobbii and Pom Pom when Pom Pom created a special yarn with Hobbii called Garland, which is the yarn recommended to use for this pattern. But if you are familiar with the other Pressed Flowers patterns, you know that it really shines the best when it has color shifting yarn because you use one skein for the overall main color and another one for the flowers and for those other little peekaboo stitches, I guess I would call them. But it's something that would look so pretty with a color gradient. That would be my preferred style to knit this in. But I think any yarn you choose is going to make this a really beautiful little scarf. And you can wear it in a variety of ways. In the pattern photos, it has been styled as a neck kerchief tied in the front or as a bandana tied in the back. You could even tie it around your head if you wanted to. If you need a little bit of extra length in order to tie behind your head, you could add some I-cord ties, maybe with a cordsmith, and get a lot of wear out of this particular pattern. This next pattern is one that I just thought was adorable and I had to include it. It is called Twee AF, and you know what the AF stands for. But this one is a little faux fur collar. So this one is meant for specifically faux fur yarn. The one that has been used in the pattern sample is Lion Brand Go for Faux, but I know that Knit Picks has a faux fur yarn, Hobbii has a faux fur yarn, and I believe Loops and Threads has a faux fur yarn, and that one is available through Michaels. But you could pick whatever one that you like to use or that is available to you and make yourself a really cute little collar made out of faux fur yarn. It'll be super cozy. I think this would be such a cute little knit. You could see it poking out of your coat when you have a nice wool coat on in the wintertime, or even just your puffy coat like I will because you need something super, super warm. The way that it is styled in the photo is with a little tie that I'm assuming has been sewn onto the back of those two corners. But there is an alternate version where the designer has just used buttons and it just buttons closed, which is a really nice option as well. I particularly like the satin ribbons because to me that makes me think of like a faux fur stole, something really fancy. But either way, you're going to get something that's just a really cute little item, and maybe you have someone in your life who thinks that this would also be twee AF. Now, if you love the idea of a collar, but you want a pattern that's going to work with just regular yarn, this next pattern is for you. This is the Cutie Collar by Agatha Wilk. I hope I pronounced correctly. I apologize if I did not. And this is also a brand new pattern. It just came out last week. I think it's absolutely adorable. It's just a standard, what I would call a Peter Pan collar, but a really large Peter Pan collar. I'm seeing these everywhere, and you know me, I love a frill. I'm currently wearing what I call my Victorian poet blouse, albeit under a sweater, because we're into winter. But I think this is so cute, and it has the bonus of being nice and cozy right around your neck. I know sometimes I need a little extra warmth around there, but it is so cute the way that the designer has styled it. One of the photos in the pattern page on Ravelry shows it styled underneath a shirt collar. So having your shirt buttoned all the way up and having this underneath that shirt collar, so you have double collars, but it would look just as nice over a non-collared shirt to kind of give the illusion of having something that has this really big Peter Pan collar. I think this is such a fun and stylish thing to make, and it's something different. You don't see a lot of collars being knitted, so it's something that I definitely want to knit for my wardrobe because I know I would get a lot of wear out of this. Only a couple patterns left on this list, and they're all homeware. The first one is Bauble by Lily Kate France. And if you did not see Lily Kate's Vlogmas last year, I'm not really big into Vlogmas. I don't watch a lot of them, but I watched Lily Kate's last year and I absolutely loved it. She had just purchased her home, which is a Victorian cottage, I believe. And I remember when she was setting up her tree, she wanted some more ornaments to put on it, so she came up with this pattern during Vlogmas last year. And then she made it free for everybody. This is the perfect stash buster, particularly a scrap buster, because each of these little yarn balls uses less than 20 yards of yarn. 20 yards. Some of them can only use 11 yards. It really depends on what size yarn you use. But these are absolutely adorable. The caveat being, you need to use a really small needle to make them. Now, I believe Lily Kate used such a small needle because it keeps the stuffing from poking out, but you know I'm always going to go with my hand health first, and I don't think I could bear to use a 2.5 millimeter needle, so I would probably go a little bigger, but that's just my personal preference. But these are so adorable, and I know Lily Kate made her own DIY yarn bands to put around the baubles to really make it look like they are balls of yarn. So if you wanted to do that, that's just a simple little added feature that you can add on top of them. And I think that really makes these patterns, but if you don't have time to do that, or if you don't want to do that, they still look really cute without the paper ball bands. The next pattern on my list is the hot water bottle cover by Emily Baldwin again. This is something that I have seen everywhere. It seems everyone is making a hot water bottle cover these days. It's something that I've never really thought of before, but I think it's because of where I live in the world. So I live in North America, and I know that hot water bottles are predominantly used over in the UK and Europe, as well as down in Australia and New Zealand. Not sure why North Americans missed out on this. I don't know if it's because we use our central heating more often than they do in the UK and down in Australia, but for whatever reason, we don't use hot water bottles all that much in North America. I know for myself, I typically use it when I'm in pain, or I've used it more frequently because I find that it helps warm me up a lot faster than just turning the heat up. Don't get me wrong, if I'm cold and the heat needs to go up, the heat's going up because I don't like to be cold. But I do find that sometimes when, I don't know if you've been outside and you've gotten wet and then you come in and it's cold, you sometimes feel like you can't get warm, especially if I'm getting sick. I know if I'm starting to have a fever and I have those chills, there are only two options. One is a hot shower, which sometimes I will go for that, but oftentimes I would rather not because then I'm going to be wet, which sometimes will make me get cold again. So the other option is a hot water bottle. Now, I have one that has a fuzzy cover over it, but I think if I had some really lovely, cozy, fluffy yarn, I would use it for this pattern. So this pattern uses DK weight yarn, but I'm pretty sure that there's like DK weight chenille yarn or something out there that's really, really soft. That would be lovely for a hot water bottle that you're gonna hug close to you and keep you nice and warm when it is cold out. I have one more pattern on this list, and I'm not sure if I chose it because I've been doing a lot of sewing lately or because it was just really, really cute. This is Woolly Cacti, one pattern, three looks. Now, succulents are one of the easiest plants to keep alive, but in case you can't tell by the plastic plant behind me, I'm not the best plant owner. So sometimes I would rather have plastic, or in the case of this pattern, knitted succulents. So I think these ones are just super cute for that reason, but they also serve a purpose. You could leave them nice and safe as just knitted, or you could make these really spiky cacti by putting your sewing pins into it. This is something that could be really handy for a sewer in your life who needs something to stick their pins in. And I think it's just adorable to use a cactus and then have the cactus shape with all those pins sticking out. It was too cute to not include in this list. And that wraps up my list of 20 free patterns that you can knit in time for Christmas. I really hope you enjoyed this list. I just thought it was just a fun little thing to do for my video this week. And I really wanted to try and get myself into the Christmas spirit. I know I'm still feeling like I'm shaking off the cobwebs of Halloween. Like, I feel that everything is rushed this year with the holidays, but maybe I'm the one that's just not getting into the spirit as quickly as everybody else, because I know it's American Thanksgiving this week, or by the time this video comes out, American Thanksgiving was yesterday. So that's typically the time that things start to get a little more festive here in North America. But, you know, if you go into any of the stores, they've been Christmas since August, so who's to know? But I just wanted to put this little list together. I thought it was just a super cute and fun idea. I hope you liked it. I hope you found some patterns on here that you liked. And if you know someone else who might like this video, I hope you share it with them. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave me a comment below. Let me know which of these patterns you liked, if you're going to make any of them yourself. Are you gift knitting this year? Are you just knitting for yourself? Let's have a great conversation in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all take care and happy Christmas knitting!